Well, Representative Walz, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it. We're just looking to ask all the candidates who are running for governor just the same few questions for everybody because we want to get to know you. I guess you're no stranger here to southern Minnesota, but for the viewers who might not be familiar with you, I guess the first question I'd like to ask is, why do you want to be governor of Minnesota?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I think first reason is I love this state and I believe in the potential of this state. I think as a school teacher, a parent, a Minnesota National Guardsman, I see what we do when we work together. And I think the only thing that's holding us back is a politics that's small, a politics that's divisive. And I think the things that I was able to do both in the classroom and as a member of Congress for the 1st District is bring people together to solve problems. So I'd like to do that because I think we educate our kids, we build our roads, we make sure people have those basic needs. This state thrives.
Absolutely. Now, again, this probably is a question that's maybe a little more interesting for you since you're from here. You're going to have that focus on southern Minnesota, but what is something you'd like to do once you're in the governor's mansion that will focus on southern Minnesota?
Yeah, and I often say in this race, and it's just the fact of it, when people say they visit greater Minnesota, I said I wake up in greater Minnesota. And I think it's something, and we're in fact going to launch this right about now when you're going to show this at some point in time, but we've got a small towns and regional vitality bill that I think comes out of 12 years of work here. It's going to be launched with mayors, county commissioners, nonprofits, business leaders, that is going to, I think, restructure how we fund some of the projects we need for southern Minnesota. And that will allow those smart things like green seam that are happening here to find that investment to build on our strength, which is of course in southern Minnesota agricultural strength. So what I want to do is I want to bring that. We're going to try and make sure that integration with the federal government, but as a governor and a greater Minnesota governor and a governor that I think has made an impact on agriculture, I would like to bring that voice to St. Paul.
All right, excellent. Now, you've listed a lot of priorities and a lot of things you've done over your 12 years in Congress. What would you say would be your #1 issue or #1 priority in St. Paul?
Yeah, I think it's, again, I do believe of all of our great natural resources, the one that is not just a cliche is our people and investment in people. And I think it all starts, all of us know, education. And I want to build on the legacy that Governor Dayton has built on pre-K. I want to use the knowledge that I have as a public school teacher. My running mate, Peggy Flanagan, ran the Children's Defense Fund as an advocate in early childhood. And then I want to tackle this issue of college affordability. And I want to start having Minnesotans see education as a lifelong pursuit and investment in our people. I want to bring those costs down. I want to recruit and retain the best quality teachers, and I want to make sure that every child, black, white, brown, indigenous, gets that education. We close those gaps that are there, and we make sure then that our employers have the greatest, the best qualified, and the most educated workforce that we can give them.
All right. So then how do you get this done on day 1 as governor, day 10 of governor? When do you hit the ground running?
Well, I think you start now, and what I've always said is I understand that the governor is one piece of a co-equal branch of governance. As a legislator myself and as a citizen and as a teacher, what I want to do is build those coalitions to make this possible. Everybody comes. I think you should be a little nervous of folks who come to you with their 10-point plans. These things like that small town bill were written by the people that are out there. So what I think you do is you build this coalition, and I've always said I'm willing to move the ball forward. The football coach in me knows if you can get a first down, that's good. You'd like to get the touchdown every time. I think you start out by building that trust, building it with legislators, seeing my colleagues, my neighbors who are serving in the legislature, in the House, and the Senate as partners in getting this done. I certainly think you measure this over the time. We should close that achievement gap by the time our first term is done. We should bring college affordability back down to people, and we should be making progress on outcomes for our students, on the education piece, and then the other priorities as far as healthcare, transportation. We're not going to get it all done the first year, but I think you start showing Minnesotans we can make that progress, they buy in.
Definitely. And now talk about the challenges, or maybe you don't see it as a challenge by not having the endorsement from the DFL.
Yeah, no, I certainly think that this is a long process. I'm not the DFL endorsed candidate, but I am endorsed by almost all of the trade unions. I'm endorsed by Education Minnesota, from sheet metal workers to 49ers. But I think I always said, and I think one of the things is I made it clear to everybody from when I first got in, I was running in a primary. 1,200 people deciding on a Saturday in Rochester is probably not the best way to do this. So I welcome the opportunity to engage millions of Minnesotans, take this message further, and I think it's showing up that we had deep roots, we had deep organizational ability in our campaign, and I'm feeling good about where we're going.
All right, and is that a challenge or an extra challenge now that you have to face off against almost, I don't know, I don't want to call it fighting, but you have a challenge within your own party, and then you have to target, the regular election, I guess?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of schools of thought in that. I always see it that you're better on that. I think I've run a positive campaign. I'm running on the Democratic side against two incredibly talented, good public servants. And so what I think each of us need to do is make the case for why we will do a better job of, one, winning that general election, and then governing afterwards. So I think it simply makes you a better candidate. It shows your work ethic. It shows you're getting out there and talking to people. And like I said about the primary election, the voters will speak, and I will support whoever they speak. I'm hoping and I believe we're the strong candidate, Peggy and I, to do this. But if that's not where the voters are at, I'm still going to believe that philosophy of investing in Minnesota can be carried forward. So I kind of disagree with the idea that primaries slow you down. I think they get you ready to go.
And I suppose, both parties have to deal with that this year.
Yeah, both are in it. And so I think, the electorate might get tired of hearing about it, but I think it gets you a good idea, just like what you're doing right now. Very important for them to get to know who I'm asking them for the privilege of representing the state of Minnesota as their governor. I think the more they can hear and see you in different situations shows your character.
Absolutely. And now you kind of led into the last question then. You've asked the people in southern Minnesota to vote for you in a different office, but why should they vote for you for this office?
Yeah, I think they don't have to guess about what kind of governor they're going to get. They're going to get somebody who builds coalitions. They're going to see somebody who works in a bipartisan manner but holds strong values. And I think they're going to be somebody who does it with a sense of joy and optimism. And I don't need to tell your listeners and the constituents here, there's a bit of fatigue with the negativeness of politics. And I think you can either go down that road, or you can go down the road that I'd like to be as governor, of make the optimism of a better tomorrow, a one Minnesota for everyone. And that's why I'm going to ask them to join me in it.
All right. I don't have any other questions for you. Is there anything else you'd like to add or say?
No, just grateful for you covering it, and always grateful for the press making sure they hold elected officials accountable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yep.
We appreciate it.